Good morning. Did you know that there's only 15 days of classes left in this school year? It's a great chance to pause and reflect on where we've been and look forward to where we're going. And some of us are going a long way away. Middle school, you've gone through a lot. New school, new friends, some tough courses. You've grown through those challenges and are ready to move on with your Appleby experience. S2s, you are in a very different place. You are about to spread your wings and fly. You've spent years cultivating relationships with those around you, but it's time to leave your families and the comfort of this Appleby bubble and travel to new places with new experiences. And this year, after 49 years in school, I get to graduate with you. I can hardly believe it. Here I am at the end of a 30-year teaching career, about to embark on another adventure, retirement. And I'm excited. But I'm also a little scared. It's made me quite reflective. So this morning, I suppose what I hope to share is a bit of life advice. I always thought you were supposed to be old when you retired, and old people are supposed to have wisdom. The problem is, I'm not feeling particularly old. But as I look back over what I've accomplished in my life, and I'm not dead yet, I've had amazing experiences that have challenged me and helped me grow in so many incredible ways. So let's assume I've gained some wisdom along the way. I'd like to talk to you about goal setting and challenging yourself. I would encourage each and every one of you to try something new, to find your passion, to step up to the challenge, believe in yourself, and go for it. And right now is a great time to start. Do you have a bucket list? A list of things that you want to accomplish not before you die, during your lifetime? A long time ago, I heard that you're 50% more likely to do something if you tell someone, but 80% more likely to do it if you write it down. Well, true or not, I like those odds. So I have this little book in my bedside table that I've had for as long as I can remember, at least since high school. In it is a list of things I want to do. Things like climb a mountain, skydive, bake bread with my grandmother, cycle in France, complete a triathlon, and live by the sea. The list is really rather long. Some things are big and some things are small. But I'm constantly adding to that list, and when I accomplish a goal, it gets highlighted. I've been setting goals since at least grade 1, and I've got proof. Those of you who've been in my classroom might recognize this. It hangs on the wall behind my desk. When I graduated from Teachers College, my father, a teacher in my high school, gave me a hug and welcomed me into the profession. My mother handed me this. It's a piece of paper that she had carefully tucked away since grade 1. It was written in that big, thick red pencil on red and blue lined paper. You remember those? My little 7-year-old self had goals. She had big goals. My sister, who's a grade 1 teacher, says that my printing and spelling are excellent. But the English teacher in me kind of cringes because it's really one huge run-on sentence. I wrote, "My father works at the high school. Every time he's marking the papers, I always find a place to watch him. Mommy and Daddy say I want to be a teacher, and they are right. I am watching him because I want to be a teacher, and I hope Daddy says I can be a teacher because I really want to be a teacher, so I hope he says I can be one." Lisa, March 1971, grade 1, 47 years ago. Clearly, I had a really strong understanding of the power of repetition, but I did have a little bit to learn about independence. I certainly looked up to my father, I still do, but why I thought I would need his permission to become a teacher, I still don't fully understand. Suffice it to say, I wrote down my goal and I achieved it. Many times, actually. I think one of my first teaching jobs was when my parents decided that they didn't want to teach my siblings how to drive our super cool wood-paneled standard station wagon and passed me the keys and sent us off to a parking lot to practice parallel parking. But I've also been a Sunday school teacher, a Girl Guide leader, a swimming instructor, a camp counselor, a canoe instructor, a childcare worker, Clearly, teaching and working with youth has been my passion. It still is. I love my job. The first real teaching job I applied for was an English drama position at a school that didn't even have a drama class. It would be my job to create the program from scratch. Now, I certainly have a lot of community theater experience. I was a Munchkin in the Lullaby League, and I did play Liesel in The Sound of Music when I was 16 going on 17. But I had no formal drama training at the time. I do now, though, in case some of you are a little worried. Effectively, I was applying for a job I wasn't even qualified for. But I wanted it. So I did my research and walked into that interview with a binder under my arm with a program for a 5-year drama program and a plan on how I would implement it. When I left that interview, I was so sure I had that job, I got a newspaper and started apartment hunting. The message? An awareness of and confidence in your own abilities will go a long way. Set goals. Be prepared to work hard. Challenge yourself. And you never know what you'll be capable of. I got that job. Was there any doubt? And I even became the department head of English. 2 years after that interview, I was given my permanent teacher's contract. I had job security, my career was set, but I wasn't settled. I wanted to explore the world. My brother and I began talking, kind of in fun, about a round-the-world trip that would take about 7 months to complete. It was a dream. But the more we talked about it, the more I wanted to do it. So it became a goal, one that would require a rather drastic change. I was, after all, only 2 years into my teaching career. How could I possibly think that backpacking around the world was a good idea? How irresponsible, how irrational. So, what does a person do in times of struggle? Well, you call mom and dad, of course. I'm 54 years old, and I still call my parents for advice. Keep that relationship strong, kids. My parents offered the most generous advice possible. They reminded me that life is for living, that you need to make opportunities for yourself and take advantage of opportunities when they arise. Their specific advice? If the school board won't give you a leave, then quit. You can always get a job when you get back. Seriously? So, armed with permission from my parents and the blessing of my school board, I have now circumnavigated this planet not once, but twice. First with my brother, and then 10 years later on my own. I had decided that I wanted to be someplace really cool and close to the international date line when we switched into the new millennium. I had a friend who was going to join me, and we're going to travel together for about 5 months. But about 2 days into a 3-week trek in Nepal, she listened to her inner voice and acknowledged that this kind of travel just wasn't for her, and she turned back. It's a good reminder that not all challenges are for everyone, and it's okay to listen to your own inner voice and do what's right for you. 3 weeks later, I learned that she hadn't waited for me in Kathmandu as planned. So there I was, halfway around the world, all alone, with 5 months of travel and some pretty stressful countries ahead of me. I admit I spent that night in my room, freaking out and scared. But the next day, I told myself that sulking and hiding wasn't going to change the situation, and there really were only about 2 choices: go home or go on. It was one of the best things that could ever have happened to me. Traveling alone is incredibly liberating, and I learned so much about myself on that trip. I'm strong, I'm smart, and I'm resourceful. In 2005, my husband Dan, also a teacher, and I decided to try our hand at international teaching. The travel bug is still very much a part of me, and we thought we would teach and travel for the rest of our careers and landed a job at Koç Lisesi in Istanbul, Turkey. Now remember, I'm a pretty worldly person. I've traveled this planet quite extensively, so I know where Turkey is, but I remember looking at a map after I had signed my contract and saying, "Hey, Dan, do you know where Turkey is? I mean, really?" and threw an atlas on his lap. Among other countries, Turkey is bordered by Iran, Iraq, and Syria. What had we just done? Our family and friends asked the same, and they thought we were even crazier when, in the middle of winter, we sold our house, 2 cars, almost all of our belongings, and hopped on an airplane with 15 pieces of luggage and a guitar. I knew no one, very little about the school that I was going to work in, less about the country, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. The lesson? Sometimes you just have to take a chance and just try something new. I can't tell you the number of times I've been asked, how could you just take off and travel for so long? Or how could you just sell everything you own and just go to another country? Or how could you? My answer has always been the same. How could I not? Life is meant to be lived. And it's not going to happen if you stay in the safety of your comfort zone. If you don't challenge yourself, you will never realize your true potential. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. And conversely, just because your friends aren't doing something doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. Exert your independence. Now think back to that bucket list. Because I ventured beyond the expected, challenged myself, and took some chances, I have checked off a lot of things on that list and done a ton more of things that I never could have dreamed of. And each experience has taught me something about myself, this world, and humanity. I've developed an incredibly strong relationship with my parents, often through travel to exotic and sometimes challenging places. I've welcomed refugees at the Trenton Air Force Base in the middle of night. I've walked door to door to support various charities and taught a class in university to prove myself to a professor after a particularly bad grade. I've climbed mountains, gone skydiving, learned to scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef, and jumped off of cliffs, face first. I've explored many of the wonders of the world firsthand, traveled by camel, the filthy, stinking, dirty animals that they are, and slept in the Sahara Desert, which sounds romantic until you wake up in the morning with sand everywhere. I've gone caving in France, crawled into the Great Pyramid in Egypt, climbed Machu Picchu in Peru, danced on the steps of the Taj Mahal in India, sang in an amphitheater in Turkey, ran the track on the site of the original Olympic Games in Greece, played soccer with Tibetan refugees in Nepal. I've been paralyzed by culture shock and sat in a train station in India for hours, terrified to move or eat. I've been lost more times than I can remember. I've dealt with theft, and I've also almost landed an airplane when my husband, also a pilot, suddenly overcome with air sickness as we were on final approach, says, "Take the yoke, keep the needle between those lines." I can't, but I did. I've been in a documentary. I've saved someone's life. I've built 3 decks. I've played piccolo in a marching band. I have my motorcycle license. I will play drum set at a concert in Toronto this Saturday for a band for adults that my husband and I created together. I've been to Vimy Ridge and Odd. I've been saddened by the Nazi concentration camps. I've had a private visit with Mother Teresa where she thanked me for volunteering to help teachers in India. And I've walked in the footsteps of Gandhi, Moses, and Jesus. Yes, life's been pretty good to me. I've been fortunate and lucky, yes, but I've also worked really hard to put myself in places that have allowed me the privilege of experiencing each and every one of those opportunities. Fast forward another 11 years, and here we are today. Each of us is changed by our Appleby experience. Some are ready for the next stage of your Appleby life, and some, like me, are moving on. Change is exhilarating, and it's scary. It provides an opportunity for a fresh start, a chance to reinvent yourself if you wish, to explore uncharted parts of you. Embrace change, seek it out. After a 30-year career that I have truly loved, it's time to move on to whatever adventures retirement holds for me. Once again, I am moving away from family and friends to a new home in a new province, and that scares me a little. We aren't sure what life will be like there, but I do know that I've done this before. Each time I have moved to a new place, I've not known a soul, and not only have I survived, I've thrived. You may not know whether you're ready to go or not, but trust, you probably are. You've had an excellent education and a lot of love and support to buoy you along the way. You just have to do it. And this won't be the first time. You will have changes in schools and relationships, careers and homes, but you will always carry bits of your past experiences with you. Be true to yourself and live so that you have no regrets. Like my husband always says, I don't want them to say on my tombstone, should have done more. I also like the saying, don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. If you don't challenge yourself, you will never realize what you can become. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. There is a great, big, wonderful world out there. Set some goals, take some risks, step out of your comfort zone, dance like nobody's watching, and highlight some of those things off your own unique bucket list. Will you please stand and sing 135?